My name is John Passfield, and I'm going to read from my novel about Pompeii. This is Pompeii Video 3, Julia, the eruption, AD 79. So this is the action story of the volcano erupting and destroying Pompeii from the point of view of one character, Julia. Here is the cover, Pompeii, Vesuvius Dominus, a novel by John Passfield. Um, The illustration is from a painting by an Englishman, James Wright, in the 1770s. So his impression of what it must have been like at that time, and that's what I did too. He came up with an artistic rendering of his impression of an event that happened 1700 years before his own time, and I'm writing about an event that happened 2,000 years before my time. My artistic rendering is a novel. Here's a summary on the back cover of the novel. On the afternoon of AD 79, a white cloud appears above Mount Vesuvius. It begins to deposit a layer of ash on the nearby town of Pompeii. Gradually, the people of Pompeii become aware that an awesomely destructive natural force has unleashed its full fury against the lives that have been established in their community. As they are swept up in the destructive experience, three people consider the premises by which they have been living their lives. Well, the three people are two historical people. Pliny the Younger, who was 17 years old at the time, Pliny the Elder, who is his uncle and his guardian, and Julia, whom I've made a fictional character. So I've worked with the history. I haven't changed any history, but I've kind of interlayered the history with fictional elements. So Pliny and his uncle are both historical. Julia is fictional. What I wanted to do then, I visited Pompeii. I was just fascinated by Pompeii. And it suddenly hit me that I could write a Romeo and Juliet novel about this story because Pliny told his uncle that he wouldn't go to Pompeii to see what this white cloud was all about because he was working on some extracts from history books, tablets, I guess they would be in those days, for his uncle to use to write further about the Navy. And I thought, oh, I know what his real reason was. He'd had a romance the summer before, and now if he goes to Pompeii, he might bump into the girl, and he doesn't want to go. And that's what he really was thinking when he told his uncle that he'd rather read history books than go. So this is going to be the destructive element from Julia's point of view. The chapters rotate. Julia gets 5 chapters in the novel, and I'll read from those. So the love affair was AD 78 when the two of them were put together as part of an arranged marriage that was going to seal a deal between his uncle as a Navy man and Julia's father as an Army man, and then present this to the Roman Senate as an alliance. And then the two older men, hotheads both, had a falling out and then have forbidden the two to marry. So this is AD 79, of course, the summer of destruction, when Julia is living through the destruction. It happened very gradually, as you'll see. And so people didn't, well, they took it seriously, but didn't fear for their lives. It was just kind of an interesting, strange phenomenon, that the countryside was being covered with a layer of white ash. And then gradually it does become serious. So this is Julia's experience of that disaster. As we go through it, though, we kind of wonder whether Julia and Pliny ever will be allowed to get together. Well, it depends on whether they both survive. It depends on whether her father and his guardian survives, or whether those two survive and kind of see the light and maybe change their minds. So Pliny and Julia are being kept apart. Julia's in her father's villa on the slopes of Vesuvius and trying not to think about Pliny, slopes of Vesuvius. And Julia flees with the others from the path of the destructive flow of ash when she realizes that this is quite serious and better not to stay here. Chapter 4, Julia 1, I'll read from first, page 27 in the book. A white cloud in the sky, just a cloud. Servants stopping in the flower beds and pointing and talking. Funny how one can't resist stopping and taking a look, though it isn't very interesting to me. Yes, I see it. Be very hard to miss. No, I don't recall anything like it before. Well, we all have much more important things to think about. Let's see now. The flowers: lily, violet, fern, myrtle, laurel, ivy. I prefer to think about the flowers and nothing else. Daisies, periwinkles, ferns, violets, poppies, artemisia, reed, pink, cypress, rose. The flower gardens are truly wonderful in August. So glad to be here at the villa and not in town. I certainly needed some time away from Pompeii. Well, the reason she wants to leave Pompeii is that there are memories of plenty there. The reason she's at the villa is she volunteered, but the servants are at the villa getting flowers ready for this meeting between her father, another important Roman, and his son, who's kind of a prospective bridegroom for another arranged marriage, and she doesn't want to go. Here are some thoughts a little deeper down in her mind as she's picking the flowers and basically ignoring this white cloud above Vesuvius. I dread coming around a corner as I leave the bakery shop. I expect to bump into Pliny every time, knowing that my heart will beat wildly if I do, knowing that each of us will speak calmly, as if our hearts are not breaking as we talk, knowing that our words will be brief, but that our eyes will be saying that our hearts will be together for the rest of our lives. So very, very hard for Julia to let go of thoughts of Pliny when she should be a dutiful Roman daughter, forget about the boy, as her father said to do, and move on to the next arranged proposed marriage. Leaving out much more of the action in that chapter, just to keep the video to a reasonable length, let's move on to chapter 8 and Julia 2. This is page 63 in the book as printed. A fine white ash drifting down from the cloud above Mount Vesuvius, sitting down under a portico in order to avoid the grit and the grime. Occasionally a large dark stone will come down from the sky. The flowers in the gardens are being covered with a fine white layer of ash. The head gardener assures me that all will be well with the flowers in time for the meeting. He's having the servants spread blankets over as many of the flower beds as they can. I could have told him that I don't really care, but of course I didn't. Well, again, the dutiful Roman daughter. A little further down in her mind, thoughts of Pliny. Oh, I hope I don't ever meet Pliny and Pompeii. That would be devastating. Every time I go out of the house, every time I turn a corner, every time I chatter idly in the marketplace, my eyes are seeking Pliny in the crowd. I hope I don't meet Pliny ever again. Well, there's something really big happening, this cloud above Vesuvius, and she's kind of ignoring that as she moves through her everyday life. Let's go to chapter 12, Julia 3. And where do I find it here? Page 101. I've left out again some action in Julia's life concerning the cloud and Mount Vesuvius. So we're moving further on in the story, 101. An extremely restless night. I don't mind it, as of late I've had seldom had a night of unbroken sleep. I lie awake at night and think about things that I would rather not have to think about. I could call for someone to sit up and read to me and order a cup of warm wine, but I won't bother. I'm sure that the servants need their rest. They have had much to do here to prepare for Father's meeting, and many of them are due to come with me tomorrow to the townhouse to help the servants who are making things ready there. Meeting Pliny last summer has turned out to be a curse. I lie in the dark for hours and cannot sleep. Well, they were brought together, as I said before, in anticipation of an arranged marriage. They did fall in love, and then they were told, forget him, forget her. The deal is off. Here are some thoughts, again, a little lower in her mind. If I ever meet Pliny and Pompeii, I will surely die. If he should be strolling through the forum or passing by in the street as I'm chatting with the baker about the number of rolls we shall need, I would be stunned. I wouldn't run to the door or call out his name or watch to see which way he goes as he turns the corner. I would continue discussing rules, the biscuits and flour and seasoning and spices, though my heart would go with plenty down the street. Well, the struggle to be a good Roman daughter. I mentioned when I did the plenty section in another video that we have lots of stories where young kids just chuck the parental values and move off on their own to live a happy ever after life. But we do, as I mentioned in that video, have communities in our society where they do have arranged marriage, but even something less than arranged marriage, there's sometimes a struggle between what young people want for themselves and what their elders want for them. And it's not always easy to just say, well, they're all old fogies, they don't understand, who cares what they think. So here's this struggle both in Pliny in the other video and in the novel, and Julia in this video. Here's more, though, of the action, leaving out some of the action of this chapter, page 110 in the book. This is darker than it's ever been at night. There are no stars and no moon. There's nothing but black. The rain of ash continues to fall. It's hard to tell how deep it is. Some spots are bare, some spots are very deep. The wind sweeps it against the walls. The servants are herding the animals out of the shelters and into the pens. The torches flicker and flutter in the wind. Large stones bounce off the roof tiles. Some are cracked and bits fall off. We are safe here in the open from falling debris. A servant organizes a prayer. We're all given a cup and a dash of water from the well. We mumble assent and pour our libations on the ground. A servant with a wound, Rezia, the little water girl, a deep cut across her neck. I bind it with my scarf and soothe her as much as I can. Tremors run across the ground. Flashes of night lightning reveal the mountain. Raging fires at the villas of friends. Hopefully all of them got away before things got dangerous. Crashes of thunder assault our ears as we wait for dawn. Surely this will come to an end. Surely the wind will soon die down. Surely the rain of ash will taper off after a while. So again, why do we find bodies in Pompeii? So we're just looking for another page as I talk. Because not everybody thought it was dangerous, or if they thought it was dangerous, they thought the safest place was to just stay indoors or under a portico and wait for it to run its course. So Julia at that time, thinking that it's safer to stay where she was in her father's villa. Here's chapter 16, Julia 4, page 141. Things have progressed. I've left out some action again. A messenger from Pompeii, Miss Julia, coming up the road with word from your parents. The servants shout to me, and I jump up from the bench and run along the road to the prostrate man. A torch reveals his face, out of breath and panting. Marcellus from father's townhouse at Pompeii, exhausted and covered in soot, ripped clothes and a gash on his forehead. His sandals are torn, his tunic is scorched and in shreds. He lies in the road a few hundred feet from the porch of the villa. Get him cold water from the well and tend to his wounds. Marcellus, can you speak? Have you news from my parents? Bring the torch a little closer. Press the water to his lips. Tell us what has been happening in Pompeii. So Julia on the side of Mount Vesuvius, not in the worst danger zone, I guess, path of the pyroclastic flow that we know is going to come down, and she doesn't. But nevertheless in a danger zone, wondering what the news is in Pompeii, which might be worse off than where she is and might not be. And her parents, like her father's a stubborn man who wouldn't let something like, what he thinks of as just a mild earthquake interfere with his plans. So she's kind of wondering whether her father, even if it was dangerous for, say, all of his neighbors, would leave. Who knows? My father's a very wonderful man. He only wants the very best for me. He is arranging my life in the best way that he can. I should be grateful and try very hard to forget the past. So even though there's a big event going on in the big wide world, there's still this question of what do you do in your personal life? It doesn't leave your mind. It goes down maybe deeper. Just looking for another page here. Into your thoughts, but it's still there. And that's the premise of all my novels, that we do live a conscious life every moment. I keep notes as I write my novels, and here is one note that I wrote fairly early, I think, in the planning and writing stages. It is important to realize that the writing of a novel is not the working out of an idea pattern which is clear to oneself in a conscious prose explanation mode, but, on the contrary, it is the creation of an idea pattern which is yet to be expressed and can only be expressed in a subconscious, poetic, exploratory pattern. That the meaning of the proposed novel is a mystery to me as I start to write it full time is very important to remember that the ideas which occur to one as one starts such a novel, ideas which superficially seem very simple and as easily diagrammed as a cartoon, are actually far more complex than their first hints seem to suggest that they are. Well, there's an awful lot of detail in the novel and the personalities of the characters and so on, which I didn't have when I started. I started with two simple, almost cartoon-like patterns. One was the destruction. I'd read all those books, many, many books, that showed you an hour by hour progress of the cloud above Vesuvius, and then of course it rises so far and it collapses, and of course gravity brings it down on the town. So I had that in a sentence maybe. A cloud rises above Vesuvius, collapses, and comes down and destroys Pompeii. So that was one very simple, almost cartoon-like diagram. And the other was the Romeo and Juliet story. Two kids who fall in love a previous summer are still in love but being kept apart this summer. And the plot question is, well, will both of them survive? If they survive, will their elders and guardians survive? And if the guardians survive, will they change their minds after seeing, there may be bigger things in the world than their smaller plans? Will they allow the marriage? So I started with those very simple ideas, and then all of the details, of course, came out of that as I worked on the novel. So if you go to, well, first of all, let me just say that the novel is Pompeii, Vesuvius Dominus, that it's available on Amazon if you wish to buy it. And then I was about to say, if you go to my website, which is johnpassfield.ca, johnpassfield.ca, you can read my notes, the notes that I was writing as I wrote the novel, which I call a notebook, book length, the notes that I was writing as I was polishing the novel for 6 or so weeks, about all kinds of topics, not only novel writing, but Pompeii itself, the idea of small communities, large communities, family, how family interacts with the larger world. Sometimes they're a gain and sometimes they're a detriment. All those things are available in those books. Those books are free. Just go to my website, go to notebooks and click, and then to the icon for Vesuvius Dominus, Pompeii Vesuvius Dominus, and same for the journal. And lastly, I'll just say thank you for watching this video.